Hi guys, today we are going to find out what if COVID-19 never happened. You're standing in Tokyo's Olympic Stadium on July 24th, 2020, surrounded by 68,000 roaring spectators. The opening ceremony unfolds before you in spectacular fashion, with no masks in sight. Athletes from 206 nations march proudly without social distancing protocols or health restrictions. You feel the electric energy of humanity united in celebration, unaware of Dodge catastrophe. The summer heat mingles with excitement as you witness what should have been impossible. You probably won't survive realizing how different our world would look today. Tourism officials project record-breaking visitor numbers as Japan welcomes the globe with open arms. Hotel lobbies buzz with international conversations in dozens of languages mixing freely. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments below. Now sit back and let's dive into today's alternate journey together. The closing ceremony arrives 2 weeks later with tears of joy, not relief. Athletes embrace freely, sharing water bottles and high-fiving fans without hesitation. You watch as the Olympic flame extinguishes, symbolizing triumph rather than survival. You navigate through Heathrow Airport in December 2020, weaving between record-breaking crowds of holiday travelers. Every gate overflows with passengers heading to exotic destinations without quarantine concerns or testing requirements. The departure boards flash green lights for flights to destinations that remain forbidden in our timeline. You squeeze past families dragging oversized luggage toward gates bound for New Zealand and Australia. Tourism industry executives celebrate as 2020 becomes the biggest travel year in human history. Instagram feeds explode with vacation photos from every corner of the globe throughout the year. You witness Machu Picchu struggling under the weight of triple its normal visitor capacity. Venice canals remain murky as cruise ships continue their relentless schedule without interruption. Budget airlines launch new routes weekly to meet insatiable demand for international adventure. You scroll through travel influencer content, showcasing increasingly remote and pristine locations being discovered. Airport lounges implement reservation systems as business travelers flood premium services. Hotels worldwide face chronic overbooking as tourism demand outpaces infrastructure development. You observe long security lines becoming the new normal as screening systems strain. Rental car shortages plague every major destination as demand reaches unprecedented levels. The phrase overtourism dominates headlines as popular destinations implement visitor quotas. You walk through bustling factories in early 2021, watching assembly lines operate at peak efficiency without disruption. Supply chains hum along smoothly as container ships arrive on schedule at every major port. The global economy maintains its upward trajectory with GDP growth exceeding all projections. You witness semiconductor factories operating at full capacity, preventing the chip shortage crisis. Gig economy platforms celebrate record user numbers as drivers and delivery workers thrive. Stock markets reach historic highs month after month without pandemic-induced volatility. You observe small businesses expanding confidently into new locations and markets. Manufacturing workers enjoy consistent schedules without layoffs or reduced hours. International trade agreements proceed without health-related complications or border restrictions. You see retail stores implementing ambitious expansion plans with crowded shopping centers. Employment rates reach all-time lows as job creation continues its pre-2020 momentum. Energy demand soars as industrial activity maintains its relentless pace worldwide. You watch as inflation remains controlled despite robust economic growth and consumption. Corporate profits surge as companies avoid billions in pandemic-related losses and adaptations. Real estate markets boom as commercial spaces remain in high demand. You notice construction projects proceeding on schedule without supply shortages or worker absences. You scroll through Instagram in mid-2021, noticing influencer content dominated by luxury office tours and commute vlogs. Travel bloggers maintain their throne as social media royalty, showcasing increasingly exotic destinations. TikTok algorithms never learn to prioritize health information or educational content over entertainment. You witness the rise of office aesthetic trends as workplace culture becomes peak content. LinkedIn transforms into a lifestyle platform celebrating in-person networking and conference attendance. Social media platforms invest heavily in augmented reality features for location-based experiences. You observe fitness influencers focusing purely on gym culture without home workout alternatives. Food content creators never pivot to grocery hauls or pantry cooking tutorials. Mental health awareness campaigns remain niche without widespread anxiety and isolation driving engagement. You notice parenting content staying focused on activities and playdates rather than homeschooling struggles. Technology reviews concentrate on productivity gadgets and conference room equipment upgrades. Dating app usage plateaus as in-person meeting opportunities remain abundant and preferred. You watch as virtual event platforms struggle to gain traction in an in-person world. Political content lacks the urgency and medical expertise debates that dominated our timeline. Educational content creators maintain smaller audiences without forced digital learning adoption. You see craft and DIY content remaining hobbyist-focused rather than necessity-driven survival skills. You drive through rush hour traffic in 2022, joining millions of commuters in their daily pilgrimage to corporate offices. Remote work remains a rare perk offered only to select tech companies and progressive startups. Office real estate markets boom as companies expand their physical footprints rather than downsizing. You witness the continued dominance of traditional 9-to-5 schedules without flexibility discussions. Zoom's stock price stagnates as video conferencing stays relegated to occasional international meetings. Home office furniture sales remain minimal, focused on hobbyists rather than necessity purchases. You observe parents struggling with rigid work schedules that never adapted to family needs. Digital collaboration tools develop slowly without urgent demand for seamless virtual teamwork. Commuter infrastructure faces increasing strain as urban populations continue concentrating downtown. You see suburban housing demand remaining stable without the exodus to rural areas. Coffee shops near office buildings report record profits from consistent weekday customer traffic. Business attire markets thrive as professional wardrobes never shifted toward casual comfort. You notice productivity discussions focusing on office optimization rather than work-life balance. Corporate wellness programs emphasize gym memberships and on-site facilities over mental health support. International business travel reaches new heights as virtual meetings never prove their effectiveness. You watch as companies invest heavily in larger conference rooms rather than digital infrastructure. You enter a hospital emergency room in late 2021, witnessing the same overcrowding issues that plagued healthcare for decades. Medical staff continue working understaffed shifts without the crisis-driven funding increases our timeline experience. Telehealth remains a niche service offered by few providers without widespread insurance coverage. You observe hospitals operating with outdated ventilation systems that never received emergency upgrades. Mental health services maintain long waiting lists without pandemic-driven awareness expanding resources. Healthcare worker burnout persists at pre-2020 levels without public recognition or support initiatives. You witness medical supply chains operating on thin margins without strategic reserve stockpiles. Public health departments remain underfunded and understaffed without crisis-justified budget increases. Vaccine research and development proceeds at traditional, slower paces without emergency authorization protocols. You see nursing schools struggling with enrollment while healthcare worker shortages continue unaddressed. Hospital capacity planning remains reactive rather than proactive without lessons from overwhelming demand. Medical technology adoption lags without urgent needs driving rapid innovation and implementation. You notice healthcare inequality persisting without the spotlight that exposed systemic disparities. Rural hospitals continue closing without federal intervention programs that never materialize. Preventive care messaging stays limited without widespread health literacy campaigns. You observe medical research funding distributed traditionally without emergency reallocation to critical needs. You watch Donald Trump campaign through 2020 without crisis management defining his presidency or re-election bid. His rallies continue at full capacity without health restrictions, maintaining the high-energy format that energized his base. You observe the 2020 election proceeding without mail-in voting expansions or election security debates. Economic messaging dominates political discourse instead of public health policy and emergency response capabilities. Biden's campaign struggles to find compelling arguments against Trump's continued economic success. You witness international relations proceeding without travel bans, supply chain diplomacy, or vaccine distribution conflicts. Political polarization focuses on traditional issues rather than mask mandates and lockdown policies. European leaders never gained the crisis management credibility that reshaped their domestic standings. You see authoritarian governments missing opportunities to expand surveillance and control measures. Democratic institutions face different pressures without emergency powers testing constitutional boundaries. Political careers develop along conventional paths without pandemic heroes or villains emerging. You observe public trust in institutions following pre-2020 trajectories without dramatic swings. Global cooperation initiatives lack the urgency that drove unprecedented international coordination efforts. Political communication strategies remain focused on traditional media without adapting to crisis information needs. You notice voting patterns continuing demographic trends without pandemic-driven political realignments. Leadership qualities valued by voters emphasize conventional skills rather than crisis management abilities. You check global carbon emissions data in 2021, watching levels climb steadily without the temporary 2020 dip. Industrial activity maintains its relentless pace as factories never experience forced shutdowns or reduced operations. Air quality in major cities continues deteriorating without the brief respite that awakened environmental consciousness. You witness airline emissions reaching record highs as international travel surges beyond pre-2020 projections. The Paris Climate Agreement struggles to gain momentum without crisis-driven urgency for change. Renewable energy adoption proceeds at gradual rates without emergency investment spikes driving rapid deployment. You observe urban planners missing opportunities to redesign cities around reduced traffic patterns. Electric vehicle sales grow modestly without supply chain disruptions accelerating the transition timeline. Environmental activism lacks the powerful imagery of nature reclaiming spaces during human absence. You see governments postponing green infrastructure investments without economic stimulus packages requiring climate provisions. Plastic pollution continues unchecked without the surge in environmental awareness from reduced human activity. Corporate sustainability initiatives remain marketing-focused rather than operationally essential for survival. You notice climate conferences proceeding without the urgency that virtual formats demonstrated for reducing travel emissions. Scientific research on air quality improvements never receives the dramatic real-world validation it needed. Energy consumption patterns remain unchanged without work from home reducing commercial building demands. You watch as the window for achieving 2030 climate targets narrows without the behavioral changes that briefly seem possible. You walk through research laboratories in 2022, noticing the absence of revolutionary mRNA technology breakthroughs. Vaccine development continues at traditional decade-long timelines without emergency authorization protocols spurring innovation. Scientists miss the unprecedented global collaboration that accelerated medical research beyond imagination. You observe pharmaceutical companies operating with conventional profit margins instead of emergency public-private partnerships. Telemedicine remains primitive without the urgent need driving rapid platform development and adoption. Medical device manufacturing proceeds without the innovation surge that created ventilators and diagnostic tools. You witness artificial intelligence applications in healthcare developing slowly without crisis-driven data sharing. Genomic sequencing capabilities stay limited without the massive investment in tracking viral mutations. Public health surveillance systems remain outdated without funding for real-time monitoring infrastructure. You see biotechnology startups struggling for investment without the sector's dramatically elevated profile. International health organizations operate with reduced budgets rather than the expanded mandates they never received. Scientific publishing maintains traditional peer-review timelines without emergency fast-track procedures. You notice research priorities following academic interests rather than urgent humanitarian needs driving focus. Laboratory safety protocols remain standard without the heightened biosecurity measures that never became necessary. Medical supply manufacturing stays geographically concentrated without diversification lessons from shortages. You watch as personalized medicine advances incrementally without the precision therapy breakthroughs that transform treatment. You attend packed concerts and festivals throughout 2021, witnessing human connection at its peak intensity. Sports stadiums roar with full-capacity crowds, creating the electric atmosphere that defines shared experiences. Office buildings buzz with constant collaboration, water cooler conversations, and spontaneous brainstorming sessions. You observe families gathering regularly for holidays without fear, maintaining traditional celebration patterns. Dating culture thrives on in-person meetings, restaurant dinners, and natural social interactions. Community events flourish as local festivals, farmers markets, and neighborhood gatherings remain vibrant. You witness religious congregations maintaining full attendance and traditional worship practices. Educational institutions provide rich campus experiences with dormitory life and extracurricular activities. Yet loneliness statistics continue climbing despite unprecedented opportunities for human contact. You notice mental health issues persisting even with abundant social interaction possibilities. Social media addiction grows stronger without real-world disruptions, forcing digital detox periods. Workplace burnout accelerates without the forced pause that helped many reassess priorities. You observe consumer culture reaching peak intensity without spending disruptions, creating mindful purchasing habits. Relationship quality suffers as quantity of interactions increases, but depth remains elusive. Personal growth stagnates without the introspection period that challenged fundamental assumptions. You discover that constant connectivity paradoxically leaves people feeling more isolated than ever before. You step back from this alternate timeline, contemplating a world that never paused to catch its breath. The relentless momentum of pre-2020 life continued unabated, carrying humanity forward without reflection. Economic growth surged ahead while healthcare systems crumbled under the weight of neglect. Technology evolved incrementally rather than leaping forward through necessity and innovation. Social connections multiplied in quantity while somehow diminishing in meaningful depth and authenticity. Environmental destruction accelerated unchecked without the brief respite that revealed nature's resilience. Political systems avoided their stress test, leaving structural weaknesses hidden and unaddressed. Scientific breakthroughs remained trapped in traditional timelines without urgent humanitarian need-driving collaboration. The absence of shared global crisis meant missing the profound lessons about human adaptability. You realize that sometimes the most difficult experiences forge the strongest foundations for progress. Without the forced pause, humanity missed its chance to question fundamental assumptions about work and life. The pandemic's silver linings, family time, environmental healing, digital innovation, never materialized to benefit society. Perhaps the most striking revelation is how tragedy can catalyze transformation in unexpected ways. This alternate world achieved material success while potentially losing opportunities for deeper human evolution. You're left wondering, would you trade the pain of our timeline for the missed growth of this alternative?